Welcome to the still breath of battle, where every grain of sand holds a story. Tonight, we tiptoe into a world where snooze wasn't an option, unless you were flat on your back in the arena sand. Not the Rome of emperors or toga parties, but the Rome of the arena. Imagine yourself in the early light, a newcomer to the ludus, ready to learn what it truly meant to live and survive in the arena. But don't worry, we won't begin with the clash of swords or the cries of a restless crowd. Instead, we begin slowly, gently. We'll settle into the quiet routines that made up most of a gladiator's life. The hunger, the repetition, the waiting. We'll meet a real man who once fought in those sands. We'll uncover the quieter truths hidden under centuries of dust. And finally, we'll drift into the silk-draped lives of Rome's elite, those who watched from shaded balconies, sipping wine as others bled below. You don't need to stay awake for all of it. Just listen, subscribe, if you like, and let the weight of the past settle softly into your thoughts. Now, let us begin, with you, as a gladiator. Imagine yourself waking in a narrow, dimly lit room. The walls are stone, cold to the touch, and they echo even the softest sounds. A cough, a whispered prayer, the shuffle of calloused feet. You lie on a straw mattress that's stiff with use, surrounded by rows of others just like it. And just like you, men who sleep lightly, whose dreams are filled with noise and fear, and who never quite know if they'll wake up free or wake up fighting. This is your life now. You are a gladiator in training, in ancient Rome, in a ludus, a training school behind high walls, owned and operated by a lanista. You have no personal belongings, no money, and very few rights. If you were once a soldier, a slave, a criminal, or even a man who chose this life for glory, that past has little meaning now. Here you are a commodity. You are trained, fed, and maintained, not unlike a valuable animal, meant to be displayed, tested, and eventually consumed. You begin each day in silence. Before the sun rises, the routine begins. You pull yourself up from the coarse straw mat, joints stiff, muscles sore from the day before. Around you, other men rise slowly, rubbing tired eyes, pulling on simple tunics or cloth wraps. There is no privacy here, no modesty, just the repetitive motion of preparation. The training ground is already awake. Wooden swords, called rudis, are stacked neatly beside heavy practice shields. A trainer waits holding a staff. He does not speak gently. You are expected to be alert, ready, disciplined. The drills begin with footwork, slow steps forward, backward, angled pivots. Always careful, always precise. You learn to move not with speed, but with balance. Every movement has weight, every stance has meaning. Your arms begin to burn as the morning stretches on. Wooden weapons are heavier than real ones, designed to build strength. You repeat the same motions again and again. Block, step, thrust, retreat. The dust from the training yard rises, sticks to your skin. The sun, now climbing higher, reflects off metal helms lined on the practice racks. Heat builds, and the scent of sweat, old iron, and oiled leather fills the air. Food comes around mid-morning. It is simple and thick. Barley mash, bread, lentils, sometimes fruit. Meat is rare. You sit cross-legged on the dirt, or lean against the shade of the training wall. There is not much conversation. Many are conserving energy. Some sit alone, sharpening wooden blades, or rewrapping their feet. Others stare blankly into the distance. It is a quiet exhaustion, the kind that creeps deep into the bones and never truly leaves. Second part of the day involves armour. Not the grand, polished kind one might imagine, but the practice gear. Helmets with limited vision, layered arm guards, shin wraps. You strap them on methodically. The helmet tightens your world. You see only directly ahead. Peripheral vision is gone. The sound of your own breath becomes louder, more rhythmic. When the practice resumes, your movements feel slower. Your limbs, burdened by weight, respond sluggishly. Sparring is not a game. Even in training, bruises form, ribs crack, shoulders dislocate. The wooden swords may be dulled, but the force behind them is not. You fight a partner, rotating regularly. Some matches are evenly paced, a back and forth rhythm of test and response. Others become tests of survival, an opponent with something to prove or one who simply loses control. You are watched, constantly. You notice who hesitates, who tires quickly, who grows arrogant. A favoured gladiator might receive slightly better food or slightly fewer duties. But favouritism is a thin thread. All of you are still tools in a blood-soaked economy of entertainment. After training, there is time to rest, though not always. You might be assigned to clean the grounds, repair armor, haul water. There are no complaints. Complaining is not permitted. When you do rest, it's in the shade of the colonnade, or lying against a warm stone wall. The conversation here is quieter, more intimate. Men talk about home, places they haven't seen in years. They speak of loved ones they might never see again. Some speak of the arena, of close calls, of faces they never forgot, friends who didn't walk back out. You begin to understand something vital. Gladiators do not think of victory, they think of survival, to live another day, to walk out of the arena on 2 feet, to avoid the signal, thumb turned, eyes lowered, the silence before judgment. As evening nears, the training yard empties. You unstrap your armor. Beneath it, your tunic is soaked with sweat. You stretch sore muscles, wipe down your gear, and return to your sleeping space. Supper is served. It's similar to breakfast, coarse, warm, and unremarkable, but you eat slowly, grateful for the heat in your stomach. Then night, the ludus quiets. You lie down once more on the straw mat. The stone walls radiate the day's heat. Outside, you hear the sounds of the city. Vendors packing up, sandals tapping across the road, a dog barking distantly. Somewhere nearby, a wealthy Roman reclines in his triclinium, sipping wine by torchlight. You are not there. You are here, among warriors, slaves, men with broken teeth and hard eyes. The sounds lull you, not because they are soft, but because they are consistent, familiar. You close your eyes, you sleep lightly. And then one morning, your name is called. And about fight day, there is no ceremony, no farewell. You are told simply, today, you fight. Your heart does not race. You are not excited. You are quiet, focused. You have seen others walk this path. Some return, some do not. You say nothing. The lanista inspects your armor. You are outfitted properly now. Your weapons are real. Your helmet gleams dully in the morning light. The edge of your sword is tested, not too sharp, not too dull, enough to entertain, enough to threaten. You walk with others to the holding chamber beneath the arena. You wait. You feel the coolness of the stone beneath your sandals, the weight of your shield resting on your arm, the pressure of your helmet in your hand. From above, you hear noise, a crowd gathering, shouting, laughing. This is their morning too. They come for you. They come for blood. You are called. The gates open. Light floods in. Your eyes adjust. The arena is open and bright. Sand spread evenly across the ground, its surface warm beneath your feet. All around, spectators rise like a wall. The roar is immediate. You do not wave. You do not acknowledge them. Across from you stands your opponent. You may know him. You may not. It does not matter. What matters is his stance, the way he holds his blade, the tension in his shoulders. The editor, seated in a shaded box, gives a signal. The fight begins. You move slowly at first, circling, watching. The world shrinks. You hear your own breathing. The clash of blades is sharp, ringing across the stone. You strike. He blocks. He strikes. You deflect. The crowd responds to movement, to noise, to spectacle, but you do not fight for them. You fight to remain standing. The heat grows. Your breath shortens. Your limbs ache. You find your rhythm, your timing. A cut lands. A stumble. The match shifts. You feel the weight of the moment. Not glory, not pride, just survival. Your opponent falters. He falls. The arena holds its breath. You do not raise your sword. You wait for the editor's signal. It comes. Life. The match is over. You walk slowly back beneath the arena, past bloodied sand and discarded gear. You do not speak. Your legs are weak. You are alive, and that is enough. You return to the ludus. You train again. You eat. You sleep. Sometimes you speak of the fight, sometimes not. Time becomes strange, repetitive, circular. Men come, men go. Some you never see again. You do not know when your next fight will be, but you know it will come. You sharpen your sword. You practice your stance. You close your eyes each night, not sure what the next day will bring. This is the life of a gladiator. Hard, repetitive, brutal, but it is also human, filled with quiet moments, shared pain, and the faint flickering hope of something better. You wonder how many more fights you will survive. You wonder who you were before, and most of all, you wonder if anyone remembers your real name. Long before he felt the weight of a wooden sword in the ludus, Spartacus was known by another life, one of freedom on the rugged slopes of Thrace. Imagine yourself among fiercely independent hill tribes, where every sunrise brings the scent of pine and the promise of the hunt. You learn to track deer through dense forests, to wield a spear with fluid precision, and to value loyalty above all else. For a time, you taste the wind of liberty on bare shoulders. Then comes the betrayal. You and fellow warriors are ambushed by Roman forces, perhaps bribed allies, perhaps an unlucky skirmish. You fight with the skill instilled by mountain life, but numbers and tactics overwhelm you. Chains replace your spear, a muffled fear replaces the forest's morning song. You're sold at the marketplace in Capua, banners of Gladiator for sale flapping above your head. In the arena, your warrior instincts do not fail you. You survive your first match, turning instinct into spectacle. The lanista recognizes your strength and trains you relentlessly. Soon you become the star pupil, talented, disciplined, and unafraid. Whispers spread. This Thracian is different, but no one yet knows how different, how dangerous you will become. It was a crisp morning, perhaps in the year 73 BCE, when the spark ignited into flame. Imagine again the narrow corridors of the ludus at Capua. You and about 70 fellow gladiators awaken to the same routine: wooden swords, dusty drills, the murmur of distant crowds. But beneath this ordinary start, you carry a quiet resolve. You have seen enough calls to the arena. You have tasted enough fear. Today you will do more than survive, you will seize your freedom. When the guard unlocks the door at dawn, you do not wait. In one swift, practiced movement, you and your companions flank the surprised overseers. Metal rings out as you cast aside your training swords and seize real blades. The shouts of guards echo through the yard, but you are already on horseback, racing through Capua's gates. You have become more than a gladiator, you have become a fugitive army. Word of the revolt spreads like wildfire. Runaway slaves, rural labourers, shepherds, and even some shining-eyed freedmen flock to your banner. At your side grows an army, strong of heart, numerous of spirit, ragged in arms. Imagine gathering in the moonlit fields outside Capua, torches in hands, makeshift camps of hides and crates. Each new arrival brings stories of injustice, an unjust whip, a lost harvest, a stolen child. There is purpose here, there is hope. You teach them basic formations in open plains. You adapt old Thracian tactics, swift cavalry feints, hit-and-run strikes, sudden river crossings. A small force at first, but soon over 6,000 strong, then tens of thousands. You lead them northward, through the fertile plains of Campania, then across the Apennines, toward Rome's vulnerable hinterlands. Imagine the sight, a ragtag army on the march, slaves turned soldiers, wielding farm tools as spears, pots and pans strapped to shields, tattered cloaks fluttering in the breeze. Though poorly equipped, their numbers terrify Rome's provincial governors. Each victory drips into the city's rumour mills, untrained slaves wreaking trained auxiliaries, freedmen inspiring towns to briefly open their gates rather than face your wrath. Your success cannot last unnoticed. Rome, accustomed to revolts quelled in days, now scrambles legions in your wake. Praetorian commanders advance and retreat, unsure whether to attack in open field or siege your camps. In one encounter at Mount Vesuvius, you and your men ascend the steep slopes to avoid confinement. You fashion rope ladders under cover of night, rappel down the Roman camp's rear walls, and scatter your enemies in the early dawn haze. The image is almost poetic, your slaves turn soldiers, descending from darkness like spectres, striking terror into trained legions. Yet strategy alone cannot sustain victory. Logistical strains bite, food supplies dwindle, your followers, though loyal, whisper fears of betrayal. You negotiate with Roman envoys promises of land and amnesty in exchange for disbanding, but Rome's offers ring hollow, coloured by political expediency rather than genuine mercy. You refuse, knowing that true freedom cannot be handed down, it must be taken. Eventually, Rome consolidates under Marcus Licinius Crassus. Imagine the oppressive heat of the summer plains. As two massive armies face off, each camp a swirl of banners, soldiers marching in rigid ranks, war drums pulsing like a heartbeat. Your army, once tens of thousands, now number perhaps 8,000 hardened survivors. You position yourselves along the Salarius River, a natural bulwark to protect your rear as you prepare to march south into more welcoming territories. Crassus strikes first. His maniples advance across open ground, their shields gleaming in the sun. You fight valiantly, shield wall against shield wall, spear against gladius. The river behind you provides safety for only some, others risk its swift current for escape. For a time, the battle hangs in balance, but Rome's discipline, Depth of reserves and relentless weight of numbers grind down your lines. Tides of legionaries flank your position, pushing you toward the water's edge. In the chaos that follows, you fall back, surrounded. You fight on stones slick with water and blood, the river's current threatening to pull you under. Your army disintegrates into pockets of resistance. You remain at the core, the embodiment of defiance, but even heroes must yield to overwhelm. Spartacus is said to have fallen on that field, sword in hand, fighting until his last breath. His followers scattered, many captured, crucified along the Appian Way as a grim warning. Yet the story did not end with his death. In the decades that followed, Roman writers, Plutarch, Appian and others, recorded the revolt in painstaking detail, marvelling that slaves could so thoroughly challenge the Eternal City. Senate debates on land reform, spurred by fear of further uprisings, would echo his name. Peasant revolts in Gaul and Britain would draw inspiration from his courage. Centuries later, Enlightenment philosophers and abolitionists would invoke Spartacus's example as they argued for universal liberty. Imagine, then, this final reflection. A Thracian farm boy, thrust into chains, rising to command an army, only to fall, but in so doing, planting seeds of hope that would outlive even the mightiest empire.
Now it's uncovering hidden relics beneath Rome's grandest arena. You stand in the chill of a spring dawn, the air thick with the promise of rain yet to fall, as you make your way beneath the broad arches of the Colosseum's outer wall. Here, off the beaten tourist paths, modern Rome's pulse softens, replaced by the echo of your footsteps over ancient stone. Imagine the quiet patter of your sandals against flagstones worn smooth by centuries of feet. At your side, a guide lifts a handheld lamp, its flame flickering and casting warm bands of light against the cool grey masonry. A faint scent of damp earth rises from the cracks, mingling with the tang of centuries-old mortar. As you descend a narrow staircase, the world above dims to a distant murmur of traffic and voices. Your lamp illuminates narrow corridors that once bustled with Lannister trainers and gladiators awaiting their turn in the arena. Moss and lichen cling to the walls in places, fed by hidden leaks from the aqueducts that once supplied this subterranean labyrinth. Your fingertips brush against rough surfaces, each groove a silent record of hands long gone. In this hush, you feel the weight of time pressing gently upon you, inviting you to listen. At the bottom of the stairs you enter a void chamber, its ceiling arched in perfect symmetry. Here, archaeologists have uncovered rows of alcoves hewn into the stone, small niches that once held equipment, oil lamps, and perhaps even the personal tokens of fighters preparing for combat. Stalactites drip in the furthest corners, and the ground slopes slightly toward a central drain, evidence of the Colosseum's ingenious design for flushing out blood and waste after events. You step carefully around patches of damp clay mixed with centuries of sediment, aware that each fragment of debris beneath your feet could be a shard of pottery, a fragment of bone, or a rusted nail once part of a gladiator's sandal. Moving deeper, you come upon a section marked by metal barriers. Within, skeletal remains lie in disordered clusters, some arranged in rows, others scattered as though hastily tossed aside. These are the so-called gladiator graves, first discovered in the 1980s and later excavated with painstaking care. You lean over the edge, peering at ribs curved like arching gates, skulls tilted in repose. Beneath each skeleton, a thin layer of soil has preserved traces of wooden planks, evidence that the bodies were laid on makeshift beds before burial. The preservation is remarkable. On some femurs, scientists have identified cut marks consistent with ritual offerings, suggesting that these fighters received funerary rites not unlike those of respected soldiers, despite their status as entertainers. Your guide points out subtle differences among the skeletons. Some bear healed fractures, signs of men who endured brutal training injuries and survived to fight another day. Others show unhealed wounds, perhaps from a match that ended in death. There are signs of muscle attachment that indicate powerful upper bodies, and chemical analyses of bone samples reveal diets richer in plants than in meat, supporting textual accounts that gladiators ate primarily a vegetarian gruel designed to keep them light on their feet. Imagine for a moment the daily reality behind the data. Men pacing corridor floors at dawn, lifting blunted weapons, sliding shields into place and repeating the same movements until their bodies demanded rest, only to rise and do it again. You step back, the hush deepening. Somewhere ahead there is the faint hum of cutting-edge laboratory equipment as osteologists analyse samples. You marvel at the collision of ancient and modern worlds, DNA sequences next to vaulted arches, once echoing with the roar of tens of thousands.
In the corner of the chamber, a small display case holds tiny jars of pollen grains extracted from dental calculus, microscopic remains of flowers and herbs that suggest gladiators may have consumed aromatic plants, perhaps as remedies for pain or fermentation enhancers for rare celebratory wine. Each detail draws you farther into the lived experience of men who balanced on the knife's edge between life and spectacle. From here, the corridor turns sharply, and you follow a rope line that leads into a narrower passage. The stones here are darker, streaked with mineral deposits from centuries of dripping water. Your lamp reveals faint etchings on the wall, scratches made not by artisans, but by bored hands. A Latin inscription, half legible, reads, Marcus favet victoria. Marcus furthers victory, likely scrawled by a gladiator seeking good fortune. You press your palm to the carving and imagine Marcus himself, running a finger along the grooves before stepping into the light to face an opponent. In these small traces you find a human tenderness, a desire for control in a life defined by unpredictability. The passage opens into a larger chamber, where columns of tufa block support the earth above. This was once the storage area for props and backdrops, wooden towers, painted flats, mechanised traps used in the early spectacles of the Flavian amphitheatre. You walk among stacks of reconstructed beams and massive wooden wheels, the remnants of stage machinery designed to lift wild beasts onto the arena floor. The guide explains how hydraulic systems and pulleys, powered by concealed animals and slaves, enabled sudden surprises in the sand, tigers roaring into the open, ships sliding out to reenact naval battles, or platforms rising to unveil hidden combatants. Imagining these grand spectacles, you also sense the quieter urgency of daily life here. The craftsmen who carved ivory and bone for helmet decorations, the carpenters who replaced splintered timbers after each show, the smiths who resharpen swords at odd hours. A soft tapping echoes from a corner, and you follow it to a small workshop reconstructed by archaeologists. The workbench is set with tools, chisels, rasps, hammers. Nearby, fragments of bronze fittings and iron nails lie waiting for analysis. You run your hand over a nearly complete helmet fragment, its crest holder intact, the inner padding clearly outlined by mineralization. To hold it is to hold the echo of a fighter's final preparation, the moments before he stepped into the blinding light above. Leaving the workshop, you descend one more level into a space known as the Hypogeum, the underground network of tunnels, cells and holding pens directly beneath the arena floor. Here, the walls rise higher, and the lamps must be held aloft to banish the gloom. The ground is uneven, a patchwork of modern walkways laid atop the original stones, which have eroded over centuries. You peer through a barred opening at a preserved trapdoor mechanism. Iron rods and wooden beams arrange a platform that once raised exotic beasts into the pit. The smell here is muskier, tinged with earth and metal. You breathe deliberately, steadying yourself against the hush that seems to press from all sides. As your lamp sweeps across the Hypogeum, you see niches carved into the far wall, cells that once held condemned criminals and prisoners of war, awaiting their final spectacle. Their fate may have been execution by wild animal, forced combat, or simple abandonment. You imagine the soft clinks of chains, the distant rumble of carts above, the creaking of trapdoors, and the last breath of men pushed into the arena's maw. Yet, you also glimpse the ingenuity of Roman engineers, who designed vents and corridors to shift air and light, to manage smells, and to facilitate quick movement of people and animals. Your steps lead you to a side chamber where recent conservation efforts are underway. Scientists, clad in protective gear, carefully extract buckets of powdered sediment. Petri dishes are labelled with grid coordinates, each grain of dirt meticulously mapped. You watch as a technician holds up a fragment of painted plaster, a piece of a mural depicting a mythological hunt. The vibrant colours, once bright blues and reds, are now muted, yet the scene remains vivid. A centaur lunging at a stag, gods watching from the heavens. This was a decorative element of a special event, reminding spectators that the blood sport below was part of a larger tapestry of Roman belief and storytelling. Beyond the conservation zone, the Hypogeum opens into a broader bay, once the main tunnel where gladiators waited. Here you notice graffiti scratched into the stone, caricatures of beasts, scratched tally marks, crude cartoons of fighters with oversized helmets. One drawing shows a small figure holding a trident and net, likely a retiarius, wrestling a larger sword-wielding murmillo. You lean in, feeling a faint warmth from the lamps behind you, and imagine the jokes whispered among fighters to calm their nerves before the gates opened. These doodles, simple and often humorous, remind you that even in the most perilous moments, humanity persevered through laughter. At last, you emerge back into the open daylight, blinking against the sun. The roar of modern tourists returns, but it feels distant now, as though you've woken from a trance. You stand on the arena floor itself, the rough sand beneath your sandals cool from shaded vaults. You close your eyes for a moment and let the wind carry away the hush of the hypergym, replacing it with a gentle breeze that whispers of olive trees and distant laughter. You think of the men whose bones lay beneath these stones, of their hopes and fears, of the sparks of colour in forgotten murals, and of the small, defiant carvings that whispered of luck and courage. In this quiet reflection, you sense that the greatest mysteries of the Colosseum are not in its grand architecture or in the spectacle of combat, but in the details, the personal tokens, the carved graffiti, the pollen grains in teeth, and the flicker of painted plaster. These fragments, when woven together, create a tapestry not of warfare, but of humanity, of souls who for a few moments stood centre stage between life and oblivion. And as you walk away, the stones beneath your feet seem to pulse with those soft, lingering echoes. You step off the arena floor and onto a narrow walkway that skirts the outer edge, the gravel crunching softly beneath your sandals. To your right, the arena wall rises in concentric rings, punctuated by arched openings through which sunlight spills. You follow the curve until a low door marked softest swings open, revealing a hidden corridor that few ever see. Stepping inside, you notice the walls here are smoother, coated in plaster that once bore painted signs directing staff and crews. Faded red letters still hint at instructions. Ad statues, scanner, Mrs. Bestiae. These were the backstage directions of ancient production crews, guiding hundreds of workers as they orchestrated events that could host more than 50,000 spectators. A slight breeze flows through an open grate, carrying with it the scent of marigolds from a nearby stall. You pause here, running your fingertips over the chipped plaster and imagining the hands that painted these words in haste before each spectacle. Perhaps a stage manager, quill in hand, scrawled fresh directions at dawn, hurriedly briefing a troop of slaves on where to position trapezes or how to manage the release of animals. In this way, the Colosseum functioned not just as a gladiatorial arena, but as a grand theatre of illusion, where every detail was meticulously planned. Continuing, you enter a chamber known as the control room, recently identified by archaeologists probing for hidden mechanisms. In one corner, a block and tackle system remains partially intact. Iron rings fashioning a grid overhead, traces of rope fibres still caught in the metal. This tiny chamber served as the heart of the hypogeum's hydraulics. Here, operators would coordinate lifts, drops, and trapdoors in perfect sequence, timing each movement to the chants of the crowd and the music of musicians stationed in the imperial box. You slide your palm along a pulley wheel, marred by centuries of wear, and imagine the deafening roar of a tiger cage rising into view, or the creaking platform that sent a condemned criminal into a dark pit. Your lamp's glow flickers as you pass into the Dead Man's Corridor, a narrow tunnel so named for the scattered fragments of weaponry and broken shields littering its floor. These pieces speak of hurried repairs and abandoned gear following unexpected outcomes in the arena. Each dented shield or snapped sword tells a story of abrupt departures, fighters escaping through hidden exits, noble combatants slipping away under cover of confusion, and occasionally, the removal of a body deemed too bloody or inconvenient to be displayed. You tread carefully, avoiding small shards of metal and bone fragments embedded in the sand, and feel a shiver that is neither cold nor fear, but awe at the layers of history compressed into this single passage. Emerging from the corridor, you find yourself in the shadow of a grand staircase ascending to the upper tiers. Here, arched windows frame views of the modern city, traffic snaking along ancient roads, domes glinting in the afternoon sun, and distant hills rolling into the horizon. It is an unexpected juxtaposition, today's bustling metropolis anchored by the quiet majesty of a structure built nearly 2 millennia ago. You climb the stairs slowly, each step echoing softly, until you reach a landing overlooking the arena's central space. Below, the pattern of the sand is broken by lines indicating where seating pillars once stood. Above, the remains of scaffolding hint at efforts to restore and stabilize the ancient masonry. Pausing, you lean on the wooden railing, feeling the warmth of the sun on your back. Ahead, a modern exhibit board provides context. Diagrams of the Colosseum's original colour schemes, notes on restoration phases, and photographs of the site over the centuries. You study an image of the amphitheatre in ruins during the Middle Ages, with vegetation clinging to toppled stones, reminding you that for centuries this monument was both neglect and inspiration. Quarried for its marble, repurposed as a fortress, and later rediscovered by curious scholars and artists. Beyond the exhibit, the path turns indoors again, into what once served as a storage vault for ceremonial chariots. Today, you see incomplete wheels propped against walls, iron fittings still glinting, and traces of red ochre paint along the spokes. Specialists believe these chariots were used in special commemorations, perhaps parades that honoured emperors' birthdays or military victories. The wood is splintered in places, revealing grain patterns that tell of the local oak that once grew near Tivoli. You close your eyes, breathing in the humid scent of ancient timber and modern preservation sealants, blending past and present into a single moment. Stepping past the chariots, a low archway leads to a room once called the Animal Pantry. It is a tight space lined with niches that likely held feed, cages and tools for subduing beasts. Modern reconstructions show racks for branding irons, hooks for hanging meat, and troughs carved into the stone for water. Soft acoustics in this chamber amplify even the slightest drip of water, a reminder that managing wild animals required constant care and vigilance. You imagine handlers tending to lions, tigers, elephants, hushed tones and practiced motions aiming to maintain order before the next grand spectacle. Exiting the Animal Pantry, you enter a wide gallery filled with school children's archaeology displays. Wooden stands hold plastic amphora replicas, terracotta oil lamps, and clay circus figurines. Cheerful pastel chalk notes express excitement. One reads, "I'm Lucia. I found this lamp fragment, maybe from an ancient trainer." Their innocent contributions warm your heart, linking past and future explorers. Your spirits lift anew. Continuing on, you find a ramp that slopes gently downward, lined with observation windows overlooking a section of the Hypogeum recently opened to the public. Here, sandy pits reveal networked galleries where exotic birds were once kept in cages suspended by wooden beams. Fragments of gilded wire, likely part of the cages, sparkle faintly under your lamp's beam. Archaeologists have identified remnants of bird droppings embedded in soil layers, now analysed to study the diets of captive specimens. Peacocks, cranes, and rare parrots, presented as imperial curiosities. You imagine the vivid plumage fluttering in torchlight, a momentary flush of colour before the next act in the arena. Pushing on, you reach a series of interconnected rooms that served as living quarters for the Hypogeum's supervisory staff. In one, you see the imprint of a hearth, blackened by centuries of smoke. Nearby, a partially intact mosaic floor depicts geometric patterns, circles within squares, rendered in small coloured stones. The pattern suggests a place of rest and planning, where managers conferred by candlelight, poring over scrolls that outlined event schedules and performer rosters. You crouch to admire the craftsmanship, noting how the mosaic's hues, though faded, once created a sense of order amid the chaos of daily operations. Your path then leads you back to the primary exit, where a modern security gate stands guard. Beyond it, a sign reads, "Thank you for visiting the unseen heart of the Colosseum. Please return to the arena floor for guided tours of the main amphitheatre." You open the gate and step into bright light, feeling the shift from subterranean hush to open air. The wind carries the distant sound of buskers playing lyres and flutes, their melodies drifting across the ancient stones. You pause once more in the arena's centre, toes digging into the fine, pale sand. You imagine the thrill of the crowd, the clang of armour, and the hush of subterranean corridors all existing together in a single living organism. Though your visit has been silent, you carry with you the voices of those who lived, fought, managed, and preserved this marvel. Every corner you explored, every fragment you encountered, adds another thread to the tapestry of the Colosseum, a tapestry woven from sweat, steel, art, and humanity. As you step back into the sunlight and rejoin the throngs of modern visitors, you feel a gentle peace, a sense that history, when peeled back layer by layer, reveals not just spectacle, but the quiet, human details that connect us all. With that thought, you wander onward, the ancient stones still humming beneath your feet, as the world above carries on, blissfully unaware of the secrets resting just below. Now, as the rhythm of Rome continues, we leave behind the clamour of the amphitheatre and the dust of common streets. Let us ascend gently, up the hills, past marble columns and guarded gates, to glimpse another world entirely. A world of perfumed halls and private courtyards, where power rests not in the sword, but in subtle influence and inherited grace. This is the domain of Rome's elite. Imagine yourself crossing that threshold now. You step through the massive double doors of a domus nestled on the Palatine hill, and instantly the world of the arena's dust and sweat falls away. Here, marble floors gleam under the soft morning light that filters through clerestory windows. Imagine each polished slab cool beneath your feet, the faint echo of your sandals amplified in the high-ceilinged atrium. Above you, a shallow basin, an impluvium, catches the rainwater that seeps from the open roof, its surface as still and clear as polished glass, reflecting the frescoed walls around it. The air carries a whisper of citrus from potted orange trees in the peristyle garden beyond, mingled with the subtle aroma of burning laurel wood in the hearth. You pause to breathe it in, feeling the hush of privilege. A slave attendant glides forward, bearing a silver tray of perfumed oils and a soft woolen cloth for your morning ablutions. Your fingers close around the bronze clasp of your tunica, and you slip out of the rough wool of yesterday's garments, revealing the crisp linen tunic underneath, its hems embroidered with a fine purple thread that marks your senatorial rank. A second attendant pours warm water from a ewer, just warm enough to soothe muscles still stiff from last night's late symposium, while a third stands ready with an aromatic oil of nard and myrrh. You run it over your forearms in slow circles, the gentle friction coaxing away the last vestiges of sleep as the scent drifts upward in a soothing veil. Dressed now in a toga of off-white wool, broad purple stripe crossing your chest, you step into the inner garden, surrounded on all sides by colonnaded porticos. Here, the morning sun sparkles on mosaic floors depicting Neptune riding a chariot of seahorses, and the sound of water trickling from a marble fountain soothes your senses. You move slowly along the gravel paths, sandals leaving crisp imprints, while songbirds flit among the orange trees, ushering in a day of measured luxury. 2 child slaves follow at a respectful distance, carrying folded scrolls tied with ribbons of scarlet, news dispatches from the forum, letters from provincial estates, and poetry you might read later, for leisure rather than duty. With deliberate slowness, you take your place on a cushioned marble bench by the fountain. A fourth attendant pours a goblet of watered wine, chilled by snow-packed amphorae stored in the cellar. Another sign of wealth, for only those with means could afford ice that travelled from the Alps. You lift the goblet, feeling its weight, and sip slowly, savouring the faint sweetness against the cool air. Around you, fellow patricians stroll by, their togae and tunics equally immaculate, exchanging nods and quiet greetings. There is no hurry, no bustle. Here the pace of life is set by the sun's arc and the leisure of the mind. When you are ready, you rise and proceed to the tablinum, a semi-open study flanked by columns, where marble busts of ancestors gaze down in silent approval. You run your hand along the carved plinth of one bust, feeling the ridges of polished stone beneath your fingertips. The room is lined with wooden shelves, cedar prized for its fragrance, holding leather-bound codices and papyrus scrolls. In one corner stands a low lectern with an open scroll, Cicero's latest oration, written just months ago. You scan the opening lines, tracing the penmanship of a scribe commissioned for this very edition. The text speaks of civic virtue and the burdens of leadership, words you meditate on, not for immediate debate, but as part of the reflective morning ritual that shapes your sense of purpose. A gentle knock at the doorway signals the arrival of your advocatus, a junior senator with polished sandals and the air of cautious respect. He bows, unfurls a scroll, and presents it, a petition from a wealthy landowner in Campania seeking your intercession in a tax dispute. You unroll the parchment, reading each line in measured syllables. The handwriting is elegant, flourished capitals, neat columns, yet the matter at hand is weighty. The province's harvest had underperformed, and the landowner claims excessive levies. You lift your gaze, meeting the advocatus's eyes, and ponder the balance between public revenue and private hardship. As you speak, your tone is calm, deliberate, each word chosen for clarity rather than flamboyance. The young senator nods, takes notes, and withdraws, leaving you to finalise your response. By mid-morning you move toward the peristylium, where your family is gathered for a light repast. A long table of polished oak stands beneath a trellis overhead, vines heavy with grapes casting a dappled pattern on the ground. The table is set with silver platters, slices of salt-cured fish, bowls of spiced lentils with fresh mint, figs from your villa in Tibur, and warm loaves of bread still soft at the crumb. A cluster of grapes hangs overhead, picked at dawn to ensure peak sweetness. Servants stand by with amphorae of oil and vinegar for drizzling and small cups of fresh goat's milk, chilled by the same alpine snow. You partake slowly, tasting each element with appreciation, while your spouse discusses the morning's readings and your children practice reciting lines from Virgil in the shade. Their voices rise and fall in gentle cadence, a soft music that drifts across the marble and into your mind. After the repast, you embark on a short stroll through adjacent gardens designed by a renowned Hellenistic architect. The paths are laid with crushed marble, soft underfoot, winding through beds of iris, hyacinth, and roses. Fountains bubble in alcoves, casting cool mists that settle on your skin. Statues of gods and heroes stand sentinel along the way. Venus, Mars, Hercules, each carved by masters whose names are inscribed at their bases. You pause at one depicting Apollo lyre in hand and run your finger across the inscription, appreciating both artistry and mythology intertwined. A light breeze carries the scent of jasmine, and you close your eyes, letting the sensory harmony lull your thoughts into a tranquil drift. By early afternoon you return indoors for a session of intellectual discourse with guests invited for the day's convivium. The argumentation hall, cooled by shadoof-driven water piped from distant aqueducts, offers relief from the high sun. Cushions of dyed silk line bench seating. A low table at the centre holds bronze censers releasing fragrant smoke, sandalwood and balsam, a calming counterpoint to the robust debate about Stoic philosophy and recent events in the provinces. Senators, poets and philosophers exchange epigrams and hypotheses in measured tone, voices modulated so as not to rise above a soft murmur. You contribute occasionally, offering reflections on justice and the role of reason, watching as others respond with nods of agreement or thoughtful frowns. The pace remains unhurried, each point weighed, each response considered. As the afternoon wanes, you move to the impluvium once more, reclining on a chaise longue under the gentle drip of the rain basin above. A slave places a bowl of cool wine at your elbow and fans you with palm fronds carved in ivory. You close your eyes, the day's privileges and responsibilities settling into a coherent tapestry. Governance, family, culture and leisure, balanced in rhythms that speak of order and refinement. The distant toll of temple bells marks the approach of Vespers, and you rise, feeling neither haste nor fatigue, but a graceful contentment that derives from a life lived in harmony with the structures you helped to sustain. Tonight you will attend a banquet in the triclinium, a grand feast hosted by a former proconsul renowned for his generosity. You descend into the guest antechamber, where cushions and mats are arranged by gender and rank, soft rugs cushioning the marble floor. Oil lamps cast a warm glow on the frescoes depicting Dionysian revelry, grapes and chalices, wild dancers. Servers glide between couches bearing trays of honeyed dormice, skewers of roasted boar, oysters imported from the Atlantic coast, and pastries filled with rosewater cream. A chorus of musicians tuned their lyres and panpipes, ready to provide background melody. Nothing raucous, just a gentle undercurrent of sound that harmonizes with the soft clink of silverware. The host rises to speak, his toga draped perfectly, his voice resonant, yet controlled. He toasts Jupiter for bountiful harvests and Roma for unbroken peace, and you lift your cup, engaging in the toast with solemn sincerity. Conversation drifts from matters of state to the latest play by a young tragedian in Pompey's theatre, to the intricacies of mosaic restoration in the baths of Caracalla. A poet recites verses extolling the virtues of moderation, drawing subtle parallels to the balance you all strive for in your own lives. Each turn of phrase is measured, each sentiment offered with the awareness that words carry weight, that a careless comment might ripple through the corridors of power. The evening, the banquet winds down. You move to the peristelium garden once more, now illuminated by lanterns hung from pergolas. Shadows dance across the flowers, and the air is cool with the promise of night. You sip a final glass of lightly spiced wine and exchange parting courtesies. The guests depart, carried in litters back to their own domus or insulae. The last flicker of their lamps drifts away, leaving you alone with your household staff, who move like shadows, extinguishing lamps, securing doors and laying out bedding for the night. You ascend a narrow staircase to a private rooftop terrace, where a single marble bench overlooks the city lights. You draw a cloak around your shoulders, soft wool lined with fine linen, and sit. Before you, the forum glows dimly, the silhouette of the Capitol rising against a star-studded sky. A gentle breeze wafts past, carrying faint strains of a lyre from a distant insula. You close your eyes, feeling the day's impressions settle, walls of marble and mosaic, hushed debates, fragrant gardens, and the deep pleasure of unwritten hours. Here, at this peaceful hour, the life of Rome's elite reveals itself not as unbroken ease, but as a continuous flow of ritual and reflection, deliberate choices that shape both public legacy and private tranquility. As you breathe in the cool night air, the city's heartbeat slows, temple fires dim, household slaves rest, and the domus grows silent. In that silence you find the true luxury, a moment of stillness, carved out of a life built on power, duty, and the soft glow of privilege. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you allow yourself one final thought, that tomorrow you will rise again to the same marble floors, the same murmured debates, the same gentle rhythms that distinguish this world from the dust and danger of the arena, a reminder that history is not made only on the sands of spectacle, but in the quiet choices of those who hold sway behind closed doors. As dawn's first pale light breaks over the tiled rooftops, you awake once more, not to the clamour of the arena gates, but to the soft hush of your domus. The city below is still draped in dawn's lavender hue, and the only sound is the distant murmuring of the Tiber, tracing its ancient path through the heart of Rome. You rise gently from your bed, a mattress layered with linen and wool, and draw aside the curtains to let the cool morning air drift in. A slave stands at the doorway, carrying a wooden platter of fresh figs, olives, and soft cheese imported from the hills of Latium. You dress in a simple white tunic, leaving the ornate toga for later councils and banquets. Your feet slip into leather sandals, and you pat the hem of your garment, mindful that even this morning's attire must be immaculate. Stepping into the peristyle garden, you pause to admire dew droplets clinging to iris petals. The gravel path is smooth underfoot, each pebble selected for its shape and colour when the garden was laid out by a famed Greek gardener years ago. A slave reaches for the brass basin set on a low marble pedestal and fills it from a hidden spout fed by the aqueduct. You wash your hands methodically, savouring the sensation of cold water against your skin. Today you depart the city for your villa in the Sabine Hills, a retreat planted among olive groves and vineyards you own. A litter with 6 pallbearer slaves is waiting at the front portico. You settle in, feeling the gentle sway as it is lifted, and you recline on cushions embroidered with pastoral scenes. Outside, the city's bustle fades, replaced by the rhythmic clip-clop of mules on the Appian Way and the calls of herons wading in marshes newly drained for farmland. The journey takes a few hours, passing through rolling countryside where freedmen's farmhouses dot the landscape. You note how each hut is accompanied by a small shrine, little tiles painted with images of Ceres or Vesta, indicating devotion and begging protection for the harvest. Ahead, the Sabine Hills rise against the sky, wooded slopes giving way to terraced fields of grain and grapevines. The villa emerges from the trees, an elegant complex of sunlit courtyards, shaded colonnades, and a central pool fed by a spring reputed to have healing properties. Upon arrival, you step onto stone slabs warmed by the sun and greet the steward, a meticulous man entrusted with managing the estate's yield. He presents the morning reports. The olive press is running at anticipated capacity. The vineyards show promising vines heavy with grapes, and the workers, both free and bound, are well provisioned and content under your fair oversight. You nod, pleased but measured, knowing that the harmony of this estate depends on both oversight and restraint. A light lunch is served in the villa's triclinium overlooking the orchards. Shards of boiled lentils seasoned with fresh bay leaf, slices of goat cheese drizzled with honey from the hives on the east wing, and a simple loaf studded with olives. The view extends over undulating fields to distant hills where shepherds climb with their flocks each morning. You eat leisurely, each bite a moment of deliberate stillness, and a gentle breeze stirs the curtains hanging at open doorways. After the meal, you wander to the library annex, a small hall lined with shelves of bound scrolls and papyrus volumes. Here you spend an hour in quiet study, perhaps reviewing recent dispatches from your patron, the governor of Africa Proconsularis, or rereading passages from Epicurus, finding comfort in his reflections on tranquility. A slave pours iced wine, kept in snow-cooled cellars at the villa, into a silver cup, and you sip it contemplatively, the cool sweetness mingling with the hush of the bookshelf. Mid-afternoon brings a traditional bath in the villa's private thermae. You descend marble steps into a tepidarium, the air misted with steam, and recline on a heated marble bench. Pendants massage scented oils into your shoulders, their movements rhythmic and unhurried. You move on to the caldarium, where warmer water caresses your skin, loosening tension from shoulders and back. Lastly, you wade into the frigidarium, the shock of cold water invigorating but not jolting. Each phase of the bath is designed to soothe both body and mind, a ritual of purification that echoes Roman ideals of balance. Emerging refreshed, you stroll through the adjoining gardens, where fountains arranged in geometric patterns send fine sprays of water into the air. Hedges are clipped into shapes of animals and abstract forms, a display of horticultural skill that delights and distracts in gentle measure. Birds, peacocks tethered to posts, furl their feathers in iridescent fanning displays, their calls soft and curious. You pause to watch, breathing deeply of the mingled scents of jasmine, rosemary, and wet stone. As twilight approaches, you return to the villa's highest terrace, where an amphora of wine stands waiting on a carved pedestal. You lean back on a bench of polished, water-worn stone, watching the sky burn rose and gold behind the hills. Nearby, an attendant places bowls of lightly roasted chestnuts and roasted fish, marinated in herbs. You dine alone, or nearly so, listening to the distant bleating of goats and the rustle of olive branches in the breeze. The world contracts to this terrace, this moment, as the boundary between villa and sky softens. Under the deepening canopy of dusk, you reflect on the swift currents of power and fortune that ripple through Rome. In the morning, you will return to the Forum, to the Senate's marbled floors, to the low hum of political life and the quiet exercise of patronage. But tonight, you are simply a man balanced between land and sky, between responsibility and repose, savouring the privilege of stepping outside the city's hustle. When the stars emerge, brilliant points in the velvet sky, you extinguish the lamps around the terrace. The world hushes, and you stand in the damp coolness, feeling the villa exhale its day's warmth. You make your way back inside, passing through atria where statues cast ghostly silhouettes by lamplight, and enter your private study for a final scroll, a poem promising dreams of Elysian fields and gentle breezes. You read by the glow of an oil lamp, each line drifting over you like a lullaby. With the scroll rolled away and eyes heavy, you allow yourself to sink into sleep on an inner couch, the marble floor cool beneath fine rugs, the night's symphony of cricket and wind lulling you into dreams. Here, in these hushed moments, the world of Rome's elite reveals itself in full, not in the clang of armour or the roar of crowds, but in the measured sequence of ritual, comfort, and reflection that shapes a life of influence. and as you drift into sleep, you carry with you the quiet rhythms that define true power, the power to command peace, to foster beauty, and to find stillness amid the storm of history. Morning light filters through the slatted shutters as you awaken in your private chamber. Within the Palatine hill domus, the soft hues of dawn painting the walls in gentle rose and gold. The air carries the faint scent of dew-damp stone mingled with the lingering traces of last night's myrrh from the oil lamps. You rise, let bare feet touch the cool marble floor and pause, listening to the world beyond your walls stirring. Distant bells from the Temple of Apollo, the faint murmur of slaves beginning their chores, a street vendor's call already echoing in the forum. A slave brings fresh water in a silver ewer, and you perform your morning ritual, washing your face, smoothing your hair, and anointing your wrists and neck with a light perfume made of crushed rose petals and saffron. You don a simple yet elegant tunic, undyed wool, its texture fine enough to feel like a gentle embrace, and step onto the balcony overlooking the imperial gardens. From this height, the Tiber glints in the distance, and beyond it, the white columns of the Pantheon catch the sun's early rays. After a brief refreshment of bread dipped in honey, and a small cup of spiced wine chilled by snow from the Alps, you descend to the atrium. There, an assembly of freedmen and clients awaits your morning audience. Each stands respectfully, some clutching petitions, others bearing small gifts of local honey or olive oil. One by one they approach, bow, and present their cases. A vineyard owner requesting leniency after a poor harvest, a family seeking guardianship for a ward too young to manage an inheritance, an artisan petitioning for inclusion in the guild registered under your patronage. You hear each plea with measured attention, asking quietly for details when needed, then dismiss with a promise, "I shall grant this matter careful consideration." By mid-morning, you retreat to the Imperial Basilica for a brief meeting with fellow senators. The basilica's cool marble pillars rise like silent sentinels, their bases polished by centuries of footsteps. Here, whispered discussions unfold about the empire's expanding borders, allocations for new aqueduct repairs, and the delicate diplomatic dance with client kingdoms in the east. You speak with calm brevity, citing reports brought by your legates, exact figures of grain shipments from Africa, tax revenues from Hispania, and troop movements along the Rhine. Each point you make is supported by meticulous notes, your manner unhurried yet authoritative, the perfect balance of confidence and restraint. After the Senate session, you wander through the adjacent gardens, an enclosed peristelium where spring blooms in profusion. You pause at a bust of your ancestor, a consul famed for his military victories, and place a single laurel leaf at its base. It's a solemn but comforting homage, reminding you of the lineage that supports your place in Rome's tapestry. A slave presents a fresh scroll of poetry newly composed by a laureate of the imperial court. You unroll it slowly and read a verse praising the harmony between citizen and state, a theme you carry gently in your heart as you move on. Lunch is served in a private courtyard, under a trellis heavy with grapevines. Platters arrive bearing fresh oysters from the Adriatic, roasted dormice stuffed with minced pork and pepper, and sweet custards flavoured with dates. You eat slowly, mindful that each flavour is a testament to the far-reaching arms of the empire, from the dark seas north of Italia to the sun-baked fields of Syria. A servant pours chilled wine infused with mint, the herbal coolness a pleasant contrast to the midday warmth. In the early afternoon, you convene with architects and engineers at the repair site of the Aqua Claudia, the imperial aqueduct you helped fund. The arches soar above you even in their partially ruined state, and you inspect the reconstructed sections, running a hand along the fresh mortar, noting colour and cohesion with the ancient stone. The engineers detail the plan to divert water for extended city fountains. You ask precise questions about gradient, flow rate, and maintenance needs, all while gently acknowledging their expertise and thanking them for their diligence. Your next stop is the Imperial Library near the Forum of Augustus. You enter a hall lined with wooden shelves laden with scrolls on law, philosophy, and natural science. A librarian greets you and unveils a recently acquired codex from Alexandria, works of Euclid on geometry. You unroll the papyrus and trace your fingers along diagrams of perfect circles and lines, feeling both intellectual delight and the hush of shared wonder across cultures and centuries. You request a modest loan of the text for further study at your domus library, and the librarian bows, promising it will be delivered under guarded escort. As late afternoon mellows into golden light, you return home for the final daily ritual. A short rest in the triclinium, with aromatic oils massaged into tired limbs, lavender, rosemary, and a hint of basil. Soft music drifts from a lyre in the corner, its melody slow and contemplative. You close your eyes, feeling the gentle pressure of palm leaf fans, savouring a moment unmarked by duty or debate. When dusk falls, you attend a private performance in your own maisonette theatre. A troupe of performers enacts a domestic comedy by Plautus. The stage is simple, wooden scaffolding, painted backdrops of villa exteriors, but the humour is timeless. Witty banter, mistaken identities, and laughter echoing under oil lamp glow. You sit among a small circle of friends, the laughter quiet yet genuine, a shared pleasure that lightens the weight of governance. Night deepens as the performance ends. You walk through the candlelit atrium one final time, noting the flicker of shadows on the mosaic floors. The household retires except for your most trusted attendants. In your private study, you review the day's correspondence one last time, sealing letters with wax bearing your family crest. You write a brief note to a distant friend in Gaul, thanking him for a gift of amber, another reminder of Rome's vast reach. Finally, you close the heavy drapes of your bedchamber and slide beneath fine linen sheets. The last thoughts in your mind are gentle reflections on a life woven between power and ritual, how each measured step, each whispered conversation, and every carefully tended garden contributes to an enduring legacy. As your breath deepens, you drift into sleep, the marble beneath you cool and supportive, the night's calm enveloping you until dawn's first light once again invites you to walk the corridors of influence and repose. Dawn's first rosy light filters through the bedroom's high windows, painting the walls in soft apricot hues. You awaken to the distant toll of temple bells, a gentle summons to the day's duties. Sliding from your bed of fine linen, you pause to listen. A myriad of household sounds stirs beyond the drapes. The creak of wooden shutters opening, the muted shuffle of sandals along marble corridors, and the soft murmur of freedmen preparing morning offerings at household shrines. You dress in a tunic of white wool with a narrow purple stripe, signifying your equestrian status. At your feet, a slip of parchment awaits, an invitation from the Vestal Virgins to witness the sacred flames morning tending in the house of Vesta. You pause, considering the privilege, then nod to the attendant who brings your polished leather sandals and helps you into a light cloak. Leaving the domus, you descend to the forum's edge, weaving through early traders setting out their wares, merchants arranging stalls of fish, produce and pottery. The air smells of fresh bread, spilled oil, and the faint tang of animals from nearby stables. You offer brief nods to familiar shopkeepers who know your path by heart, then slip through the temple of Castor and Pollux' ruins, crossing to the circular house of Vesta, its columns elbow-deep in dawn's shadow. Inside, the Vestal Virgins move with serene purpose. You stand respectfully behind a low barrier as they stir the sacred hearth's embers with marble pokers. The flame, tended continuously for centuries, promises Rome's enduring strength. You watch, sensing centuries of prayers and rituals distilled into the flickering light. A Vestal offers you a small olive branch, blessed and still warm from the hearth, and you accept, pressing it respectfully to your lips before tucking it into your tunic. From the house of Vesta you walk to the Basilica Aemilia, where you preside over a hearing regarding a boundary dispute between two neighbouring landowners. The basilica's columns, flecked with gold leaf, rise around the marble dais where you sit in judgment. The disputants present their cases. One claims a wall encroaches on his vineyard. The other insists the boundary stones mark the original grant. You examine survey maps drawn on papyrus, compare official inscriptions on bronze plaques, and listen as both speak. Your verdict, delivered in calm, precise Latin, honours tradition while ensuring equity. Both parties bow and accept your decision, their tension melting into respectful acquiescence. Mid-morning brings a procession to the Capitoline Hill to honour Jupiter Optimus Maximus. You join fellow senators and priests in a slow march, tunics adorned with laurel wreaths. The pathway is lined with citizens throwing rose petals at your feet. In the temple's grand chamber, incense smoke coils around towering statues. You assist the Pontifex Maximus in offering first fruits, baskets of grain, garlands and jars of honey into the sacred pit. The high priest intones the blessing, a low chant that vibrates through the marble floors, and you leave with ashes of the fire sprinkled on your toga's border, a token of divine favour. After the ceremony, you return to your domus for a modest midday meal. Today's fare is a simple porridge of spelt and milk, sweetened with fresh figs, accompanied by crisp lettuce drizzled with vinegar and olive oil. Conversation is minimal. The focus rests on personal reflection, and the nourishment of both body and mind. Early afternoon, Socratic school debate at the portico of Octavia, where philosophers gather under shaded colonnades. You find your place among students and masters. A young Stoic questions the nature of fear. A peripatetic counters with Aristotle's principle of the golden mean. The voices remain soft, each point met with contemplative pauses rather than heated argument. You contribute a gentle clarification on virtue and self-control before rising to depart, carrying with you the humility and insight such dialogues impart. Later, you host a small circle of poets in your triclinium. Oil lamps burn steadily as verses are recited. One by one, poets stand to present odes on the city's great triumphs and reminders of mortality, a dance of celebration and memento mori. You listen, letting the rhythms of metre and rhyme wash over you, noting the interplay of light and shadow cast by the lamps on frescoed walls. As afternoon shifts to evening, you venture to the imperial stables to inspect prized thoroughbred horses. You greet the Magister Equitum, who leads you through rows of sleek animals, their coats gleaming, their breaths steaming in the cooling air. You stroke the neck of a stallion named Aurum, its mane braided with ribbons, an animal gifted by a distant governor. The caretaker whispers of the horse's gentle temperament, and you run a thoughtful hand along its flank, smiling quietly at the creature's calm intelligence. Returning home, you change into formal attire for a banquet celebrating a victorious provincial campaign. The host, a decorated general, welcomes you under torchlight in an open-air courtyard draped with banners. Tables groan under roasted peacock, pheasant, pine nuts, and exotic fruits. Wine flows freely, but you sip sparingly, intending only to accompany the meal. Speeches are made of valour, sacrifice, and the unity of the empire. You applaud politely, your gaze drifting to the night sky above, where stars sparkle like distant lanterns, guiding the empire's destiny. When the feast winds down, you retreat to a secluded corner to exchange private words with the general, praise for his accomplishments, and counsel on integrating veterans into civilian life. Your tone is confidential, respectful, and measured. He nods, grateful for your guidance. Late at night, you return to silence. In your private study, you allow yourself a final indulgence, a wax tablet with a line or two of your own composition, a reflection on the day's events, gratitude for stability, and a wish for wisdom tomorrow. You record it quickly, then place the tablet on a shelf to dry. Finally, you withdraw to your bedchamber, where embroidered tapestries depict scenes of pastoral peace. You gaze at the images, milkmaids, shepherds, rolling hills, before crawling beneath the soft covers. As the household quiets, you permit your thoughts to drift from Rome's paths of power to the simpler scenes of the tapestry. In those images, pressed between history's grandeur and the mind's gentle embrace, you find the surest path to rest. Here, wrapped in linens and the hush of your domus, the world's weight falls away. The life of Rome's elite, filled with ritual, reflection, and measured grace, yields at last to the soft rhythms of sleep, proof that even in power, peace can be found. The next dawn rises gently over the Palatine, and once more you awake to the soft light filtering through your high windows. The marble beneath your feet still retains the cool of night as you stand, pausing to inhale the quiet calm. Today, you will preside over the dedication of a new public bathhouse, a gift from your family to the citizens of Rome. A slave brings a basin of warm water scented with marjoram and lavender. You wash your face and forearms, the soft fragrance lingering on your skin. You dress in a toga dyed a deep, dignified purple, its heavyweight folds falling in graceful pleats. Slaves steady the garment around you, ensuring the stripe denoting your status lies straight and true. You step into polished sandals embroidered with fine leather straps, a final touch of understated elegance. Exiting your domus, you follow the paved street toward the new bath complex. On the way, freedmen and clients pause to greet you, some kneeling briefly, others offering small tokens of appreciation. You nod, acknowledging each with a gentle smile and a few quiet words of thanks. The city itself seems to lean toward you, walls and porticos warmed by the morning sun, fountains glinting. At the bathhouse entrance, built of white travertine and rose marble from Samian quarries, you pause under a gently carved lintel. Mosaic panels depicting Neptune rising from the waves shimmer beneath your gaze. Slender columns of green Numidian marble flank wide bronze doors. A crowd of citizens has gathered, men in tunics, women in stolas, children perched on their parents' shoulders. Servants stand by with white lilies to present, a symbol of purity and welcome. You step onto a low dais. After brief formalities invoking the blessing of Minerva, you pronounce the baths officially open. The doors swing inward, and delicate steam wafts out, carrying the scent of heated mineral water and scented oils. You lead the first procession through the frigidarium, cool, echoing, with water rippling in the shallow pool. Citizens murmur in delight at the relief it brings. Next, the tepidarium envelops them in gentle warmth, the vaulted ceiling echoing with hushed conversation. Finally, the caldarium, where fragrant steam mingles with the glow of heated floors. Your heart swells at the gratitude on faces glistening with wellness, the knowledge that this gift will comfort Rome for generations. As you step back into the sunlight, you slip through a side door onto a terrace overlooking the bath's roof. There, a light feast awaits, small loaves baked that morning, bowls of creamy yogurt, slices of honeyed melon. You eat briskly, mindful of the schedule, yet allowing yourself a moment of shared pleasure among the workers who built this marvel, stonemasons, carpenters, and engineers. You thank them personally, each handshake firm but measured. Midday brings a meeting with the Guild of Silversmiths in the Curia Julia. You enter a cool chamber lined with display cases of exquisite vessels, intricate goblets and delicate jewellery. The guildmasters present new designs intended for the next Saturnalia festival. You handle each piece, feeling the weight of the silver, noting the finesse of the filigree. One design, a bowl etched with the scene of Diana and her nymphs, captures your eye. You commend the artisan's skill and approve a modest commission for the imperial household, ensuring patronage that will sustain the guild's prosperity. Afterwards, you travel by private litter to the outskirts of the city, where an unassuming villa hosts a philosophical symposium. The route follows the broad Via Latina, lined with tombs and columbaria, their niches catching the afternoon light. You recline on cushions inside a frescoed triclinium, listening as Neoplatonists debate the nature of the soul and its ascent toward unity with the One. Their voices are soft, each argument met with contemplative silence. You interject rarely, offering a balanced view that bridges legal practicalities with metaphysical yearning. The symposium ends with a shared cup of lotus-infused wine, a gentle, soporific libation rumoured to calm restless minds. Late afternoon carries you back toward the heart of Rome, where you stop at the Temple of Isis in the Campus Martius. You are not Egyptian, yet you find solace in the liturgy. Hooded priests chant in a language half understood, slow incense smoke drifting upward as dawn-lit offerings sizzle on copper braziers. You watch as temple attendants release white doves through a perforated roof, their cores lifting in harmony with sacred melodies. The mystery cult's promise of personal salvation resonates softly, adding a note of introspection to your day. As twilight falls, you return to your domus for an evening ritual, a brief reflection in your private garden. Lanterns glow along winding paths tiled with mosaic patterns of dolphins and lotus blossoms. Roses and night-blooming jasmine scent the air, their perfume heady but not overpowering. You walk slowly, sandals whispering against the stones, pausing occasionally to touch a petal or inhale the cool night air. A small fountain murmurs nearby, its flow a gentle lullaby of trickling water. Dinner is served in the triclinium by flickering torchlight. Tender lamb roasted with rosemary, served alongside spelt pilaf with pine nuts. A salad of endive and pomegranates drizzled with aged vinegar. You eat with a few trusted advisors, discussing mundane matters. Construction of a new aqueduct, the upcoming consular elections, grain reserves for winter. Conversation remains soft, respectful, each voice measured to avoid raising the level above quiet repose. After the meal, you ascend to the rooftop terrace once more. The sky is a dome of deep indigo, constellations bright and familiar. You recline on a marble bench, carved with scenes of Orion hunting, an apt companion for your thoughts on pursuit, power, and destiny. A slave offers wine flavoured with cinnamon and honey. You sip slowly, letting the warmth spread through you. The city's lights twinkle below. The hum of distant conversations drifts up like a lullaby. You close your eyes, breathing steadily, as the patterns of stars and softly flickering lamps merge in your mind's eye. Memories of today's ceremonies, debates and discoveries gently fade, leaving behind the essential tranquility that accompanies authority wielded with wisdom. Your final thought is gratitude. for life's comforts, for the chance to shape your world, and for this brief interlude of stillness before sleep. As the first rays of dawn stretch across the Palatine hill, you awake once again, the soft touch of linen brushing your skin as you rise. Today, your footsteps lead you not to the baths or the forum, but to the edge of the city's harbour, to inspect the newly completed warehouses that will store grain shipments arriving from Egypt and North Africa. You dress in a simple tunic of undyed wool, belted at the waist, and don a cloak of pale blue, its colour reminiscent of the Mediterranean at daybreak. Descending the marble staircase, you pause at the atrium to accept a small dish of fresh figs and honeycombs brought by a young slave. You savour one fig slowly, its sweetness a gentle promise of the day's work ahead. Outside, the cobbled street is alive with the calls of merchants and the clang of shipyard hammers. You move through the city gate, acknowledging guards with a nod, and step onto the dusty road leading to the Tiber's edge. At the harbour, you find the grand warehouses, structures of stone and hearty timber, with broad doors swung open to reveal mounded sacks of grain. Foremen stand at attention as you approach, holding rolled parchments of shipping manifests. You unroll the first manifest, scanning columns of numbers, bushels allocated for the annona, earmarked for distribution to Rome's poorest citizens. You ask questions about cargo conditions, whether any sacks show signs of moisture seepage, if vermin have been reported, and what measures are in place to fumigate storage rooms. The foremen respond with confident detail, their voices low and measured, and you approve their plans for watch rotations and additional oil lamps to curb dampness. A small rise in your brow prompts one to suggest placing bowls of aromatic herbs, thyme and bay leaf, to deter pests, a thoughtful measure you applaud.
Satisfied, you climb aboard a small barge docked alongside the quay. A handful of slaves polishes the oars and adjusts heavy sails. You settle onto a low-deck seat cushioned with woven reeds and watch as the barge glides downriver, the city's silhouette receding behind you. The Tiber's current is mild this morning, carrying the barge past villas and warehouses, under low stone bridges spanning the channel. On board, you speak quietly with the navigator about water levels and potential silt build-up, keen to ensure the barge's safe passage back upstream with another load. After returning to the dock, you dismiss the navigator and head toward the nearby Temple of Janus. Built to honour the god of beginnings and transitions, its open gates symbolise war, while closed ones symbolise peace. Today you have the honour of closing the temple's doors, marking a temporary cessation of hostilities in a distant province. You step into the cool marble interior where priests in white robes stand in a circle around the sacred flame. With solemn grace you lift one side of the heavy bronze door, pushing until it meets its counterpart with a soft clang. A hush falls over the temple as the sound reverberates. You bow to the priests, who murmur a prayer, and you retreat with the serene satisfaction of having participated in a moment of cosmic significance. Midday at the Domus is brief, a handful of fragrant olives, a cup of spiced wine, and then you head to the theatre district. Today's programme features a tragedy by Seneca, performed in a wooden playhouse near the Circus Maximus. You enter the theatre through a side passage reserved for patrons and take your seat on a raised platform cushioned with silk. Beneath you, the wooden stage glows with fresh oil and musicians tune their lyres. As the performance unfolds, you lean forward, absorbing the measured cadence of each actor's speech, the interplay of light and shadow on their painted masks, the mournful trumpets signalling scene changes. Despite the tragic tale of jealousy and revenge, the overall effect is one of contemplative solemnity, an ideal accompaniment to the calm you cultivate. After the play, you join the actors in a small reception beneath the stage. They offer you a token, a perfumed wreath of rosemary and violets, a symbol of remembrance. You accept it graciously, pressing it to your heart before placing it inside your cloak, where its scent will linger through the evening. You share a few quiet words with the lead actor, praising his delivery and noting how the drama resonates even today, with lessons on moderation and the perils of unchecked emotion. Late afternoon, you convene in the villa's library with an astronomer from Alexandria. You recline on a cushioned bench beneath a painted dome decorated with constellations. The astronomer unfurls a map of the heavens, pointing out recent observations of a comet, interpreted by some as an omen of change. You examine the carefully drawn circles and symbols, asking how celestial events might correlate with seasonal harvests,
or the tides of the Mediterranean. The astronomer replies with scholarly precision, and you listen, letting the weightless patterns of stars calm your thoughts, even as they inspire new questions about fate and free will. As dusk settles, you emerge onto the terrace for a final round of business, reviewing designs for a new aqueduct fountain in your home district. Artisans and engineers stand by, holding small models carved from ivory and terracotta. You trace the channels meant to carry water into a central basin, noting where spouts and basins will be placed for ease of use by passers-by seeking fresh water. You approve minor adjustments to the flow rate and applaud the decorative friezes planned for the fountain's base, depicting scenes of river gods and nymphs. The artisans bow, their pride evident in quiet smiles. Night falls, and you host a modest symposium on medicine in your triclinium. A physician from Pergamum presents his latest findings on herbal remedies for insomnia, a fitting topic, you note wryly, for your channel's inspiration centuries hence. He speaks of chamomile, valerian root, and the importance of balanced humours. You sip a calming concoction of honey-infused wine, its flavour gentle and soothing, as you exchange soft-spoken remarks on the connection between body and mind. Finally, you retire to your chambers. The last lamp is extinguished, and you slide beneath your soft linens. The gentle whisper of the city at night, distant water sloshing against barges, faint music drifting from taverns, becomes a lullaby. You breathe deeply, allowing the rich tapestry of daily grandeur to give way to peaceful thoughts of gardens, libraries, and silent temples under starlit skies. Sleep enfolds you, and the life of Rome's elite, measured, reflective, and sedate, fades into a restful dream. The next morning, the first pale light of dawn filters through the slatted shutters of your private chamber, stirring you from a night of deep, restorative sleep. You rise slowly, feet touching the cool marble floor, and pause to orient yourself. The air is hushed, save for the distant trickle of water from the neighbouring domuses impluvium, and the faint caw of a morning crow echoing from the Palatine's gardens. A slave enters quietly, bearing a silver ewer and basin. You wash your face and hands with care, letting the cool water chase away any lingering drowsiness. Then, drawing aside the heavy curtains, you step onto the balcony to greet the day. Below you, the city stretches out in mottled patterns of red tile and white marble. The Tiber glints softly in the early light, and on the opposite bank, the gentle hills of Trastevere rise like a distant promise. Dressing in a finely woven linen tunic, its edges intricately embroidered with a simple geometric pattern, you prepare for a journey beyond the city's heart. Today, you will travel to Ostia, Rome's great port, to inspect the new grain docks recently completed under your patronage. A litter waits at the street below, its cloth canopy embroidered with your family crest. 6 pallbearer slaves lift it carefully. You recline on cushions of dyed wool, the gentle sway and muted creak of wood, a familiar comfort as you move through waking streets. The road to Ostia follows the ancient Via Ostiensis, its surface smooth beneath the wheels of merchant carts and the footsteps of travellers. Along the way, freedmen with wares, a cloth merchant displaying dyed fabrics in vibrant hues, a potter arranging earthenware amphorae, pause to offer respectful greetings. You acknowledge them with a nod and a gracious word, mindful that your presence here symbolises the link between Rome's centre and its far-flung dependencies. Arriving at the port, you step onto the long wooden pier stretching into the Tiber's brackish waters. Massive ships lie moored, their holds filled with Egyptian wheat and North African barley, a lifeline for Rome's burgeoning population. Foremen present manifest rolls, sealed with wax and stamped with official emblems. You inspect each one, pausing to ask about spoilage rates, stowage methods and inspection protocols. Where the grain shows signs of dampness, you order immediate transfer to ventilated sheds. Where labourers balk at handling heavy sacks, you authorise additional pay incentives. Your decisions are delivered calmly, precisely, and with an undercurrent of genuine concern for the city's welfare. Next, you visit the newly completed warehouses, broad vaulted halls of stone designed for both function and durability. Moss-resistant concrete lines the floors, windows high above allow shafts of sunlight to penetrate, illuminating dust motes that dance like fireflies in the air. You run your hand along the cool stone wall, noting the quality of mortar, the tightness of the arches. Engineers accompany you, demonstrating the ingenious system of sliding panels that regulate airflow and deter moisture. You test one panel, feeling the satisfying click as it seals. You nod in approval. As midday approaches, you gather with dock supervisors and grain inspectors on a raised platform overlooking the cargo bay. A simple feast is provided: bowls of fresh fish from the nearby lagoon, loaves baked that morning in Ostian ovens, and goblets of watered-down wine to quench thirst in the harbour's salty air. You share conversation about maritime trade, the seasonal winds that aid navigation, and the prospects for increased shipments in the coming month. When the meal concludes, you address the assembled workers directly, thanking them for their diligence and reminding them that their labour sustains Rome's heart. They cheer quietly, a sea of rough hands raising cups in salute, and you reply with a wave before returning to the litter. The journey back to the city is leisurely. You pause once more in a roadside shrine to Mercury, offering a small coin and a whispered prayer for safe travels and favourable winds for the merchants. The shrine's stone surface bears scars of weather and worship, each chipped corner a testament to countless pilgrims seeking guidance and protection. You place your hand on the cool column, then turn back onto the road, the litter's gentle motion easing you into a contemplative silence. Back in your domus by early afternoon, you retire to your triclinium for a light sustenance of olives, cheese, and figs. A breeze drifts through open windows, carrying the distant laughter of children playing in the streets. You recline on cushioned marble, reading a scroll of recent letters from your estate managers in Campania. They report bountiful harvests and request your input on cultivating a new strain of olive tree rumoured to resist blight. You scribble a brief reply, endorsing trial planting and offering to send a convoy of grafts for experimentation. With letters dispatched, you move to the peristyle garden for a brief walk. The path winds among stately cypresses and boxwood hedges, clipped to resemble abstract forms. A fountain at the centre murmurs, its cool spray casting rainbows in slanting sunbeams. You pause beside a statue of Apollo, its marble surface worn smooth by centuries of reverent touches, and draw in a slow breath of jasmine and moist stone. Late afternoon brings a visit from a group of scholars convening to discuss the newly translated works of Archimedes. They present a model of an early mechanical screw designed for irrigation, a device that could transform agricultural productivity in arid provinces. You lean forward, inspecting the model's wooden threads and polished lead fittings. The lead scholar demonstrates its operation, turning the central shaft to raise water from a simulated well. You ask questions about material durability and labour requirements for manufacture, then commission a larger-scale prototype to be built for testing on your Sabine Villa's olive groves. Evening descends, and you host a modest supper in the tepidarium, an intimate dinner held in a softly lit side chamber off the bath complex. The menu is simple, yet refined. Steamed artichokes drizzled with garum, small fish grilled with herbs, and rice cooked in broth with a hint of saffron. You dine in subdued light, reclining on a chaise that overlooks a shallow pool. Steam from the adjoining caldarium provides a gentle warmth, and attendants stand by with bowls of cool water and perfumed oils to refresh your face. Conversation revolves around recent theatrical performances and the potential restoration of an old mural in the Temple of Apollo, a subject that sparks your enthusiasm for cultural patronage. As night settles fully, you retreat again to your private study. The room is illuminated by a single oil lamp whose flame flickers against shelves lined with scrolls of law, poetry, and natural philosophy. You select a scroll of Lucretius and read softly of atoms and void, of natural phenomena explained without divine intervention, a perspective that both intrigues and soothes your mind. After a few passages, you roll the scroll closed, place it atop a small table, and pen a brief annotation in your own hand, noting the resonance of Epicurean thought with your own search for tranquility. Finally, you return to your bedchamber, where the night air drifts cool through open windows. The tiled floors retain the day's warmth, and you step onto a fine rug woven with pastoral scenes, shepherds guiding flocks beneath olive trees. Drawing the blankets around you, you settle in, your thoughts drifting from port inspections to philosophical debates, from public banquets to intimate reflections. Slowly, respiration deepens, muscles relax, and consciousness yields to sleep. Here, at last, the opulent world of Rome's elite, its cultivated gardens, intellectual salons, refined rituals, and far-reaching responsibilities, fades into a peaceful dream, carrying you toward the dawn of another day, another echo in the grand tapestry of a civilization built on both might and measured grace. Now let us draw the curtain softly on our time beneath Rome's stone and marble. You awaken once more, though only in memory, to the quiet of yesterday's echoes, the measured rhythm of sandals on polished floors, the hush of marble fountains, and the whispered prayers in subterranean corridors. We have walked in another's sandals, from the straw mats of the ludus to the cool impalvium pools of a senator's domus, from the clash of wooden swords beneath the rising sun to the hushed debates of philosophers by lantern light. Pause now and breathe deeply. Feel the steady pulse of history settle in your mind. The roar of the crowd, the fury of battle, the weight of office all soften into a single thought, that these lives lived millennia ago, were woven with the same threads of hope, duty and quiet reflection we know today. As you lie back, let the gentle detail of scented oils, distant tides and flickering torches guide your thoughts towards stillness. The grandeur of empire, the toil of the arena and the luxury of the halls fade into the night's embrace, leaving only the essential calm. May these images of discipline, discovery, mystery, and measured power lull you further into rest. And when the first light of tomorrow stirs the rooftops of your own world, may you awaken refreshed, carrying with you the subtle grace of Rome's past. Now, as the last echoes of marble fountains and distant torchlight fade, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. What time is it where you're watching? Let us know. Maybe others are keeping you company in the middle of the night. If you enjoyed drifting through ancient Rome with us, please like this video. And if you'd like more sleep-soft history journeys, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell. Good night and sleep well.